I will now move on to motion number 1 on social security. Mel Stride, Shadow Secretary of State, to move.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the motion on the order paper. Madam Deputy Speaker, the party opposite, the government, in the general election said they were going to bring in a new style of politics. Politics centred on integrity and transparency. And so it was during that election that we held them to account and pressed them on matters of tax amongst other matters. And we will find out, with the budget at the end of next month, whether they were telling the truth or not. And I have my suspicions. But we've already discovered one thing right now, and that is we also pressed them on the winter fuel payment. Millions of pensioners benefiting up and down the country. And why? Because this party on this side of the House stands full square between our elderly. We believe that they should have security and dignity in their later years. And Madam Deputy Speaker, we actually received those cast iron assurances from the party opposite. In fact, the then Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury said when pressed on the winter fuel payment, and where is he is a good question to ask, that the Labour Party had no plans, I quote, no plans to do anything in respect to the winter fuel payment. And indeed, Labour candidates up and down the country gleefully pointed to their manifesto as having no mention of doing anything on this particular matter. But look, Madam Deputy Speaker, within a matter of a few short weeks, what has happened? What happened to integrity? What happened to transparency? It went out of the window. Broken promises already. That special contract that they sought to have with the British people based on integrity and decency smashed into a million pieces. And what is the impact of these measures? Well, to a degree we don't know, and I will come on to that, Madam Deputy Speaker. But what we do know is that 9 out of 10 pensioners will lose the winter fuel payment up to £300 at the most difficult time of year for millions of them, at a time when the energy guarantee, the price cap, is going up by 10%. And the suggestion from the members opposite that somehow this is just the wealthy that are affected, the millionaires, far from it. 2/3 of those pensioners who are living below the poverty line will have this benefit removed. Shocking. And the 880, they don't like it, they don't like it. And the 880,000 pensioners who we know who are eligible for pension credit but are not yet receiving it will also suffer. And the party opposite, and they chunter from a sedentary position, but the party opposite may say they're going to have these wonderful campaigns that's going to get everybody that's entitled onto pension credit. The reality is that even if they did that, that would see a cost to the Exchequer of £3.8 billion, which is over twice the money they say they are going to be saving. This is an absurd policy which their own plans are actually actively working against. And the haste with which this has been carried out, Madam Deputy Speaker, is simply jaw-dropping. We do not have any impact assessments. We do know, I will momentarily, we do not know what the impact will be across the income distribution. We do not know, every member of this House does not know what the impact will be within their own constituency. We do not know what the recommendation of the Social Security Advisory Committee will be. Why? Because they will not be given the information until tomorrow, we are told. And this, of course, has not formed part of what it should have formed part of, which is a major fiscal event with the OBR scoring it and an economic and fiscal outlook accompanying it. In fact, I will come to the honourable gentleman. The only authority to comment thus far on these measures is the House of Lords Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee, who said, and I quote, "We are unconvinced by the reasons given for the urgency attached to laying these regulations and are particularly concerned that this both precludes appropriate scrutiny and creates issues with the practicalities of bringing in the change at short notice. That, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think says it all. And I will give way to the honourable gentleman who's been very patient.
Finally giving way. Could a shadow minister clarify which leadership contender has called for the means testing of the Winter Fuel Allowance? Clarify.
Well,
The Chancellor called for it.
I'm left feeling, Madam Deputy Speaker, that intervention was barely worth the wait, I'm afraid. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, the fact that we even have a debate today is near miraculous, given the resistance from the party opposite. It is, of course, because of the scrutiny that this side of the House, this Conservative Party, is providing to this government. We know also the petitions that have been railing against these measures. Silver Voices, 100,000 people, 38 Degrees, a third of a million, Age UK, over 500,000 people calling on this government to think again. The press, particularly the Express newspaper, doing such a sterling job in bringing these matters to the attention. And even the trade union movement, Unite, pointing the finger at this government and saying it is picking the pockets of pensioners. I give way to my honourable friend.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way. I think it's the sense of disappointment. Yesterday we had the Health Secretary dragged in here because we have a multi-million-pound making consultant in the health industry wandering the corridors with access to papers. Today we have pensioners betrayed. And does my honourable friend agree, that right honourable friend agree, that when people voted Labour, they thought they were getting change. They thought they were going to get transparency. They were promised higher standards. They are getting the opposite.
I thank my honourable friend for his very appropriate intervention. He is, of course, right. The only thing that is surprising is how remarkably quickly this has all fallen apart. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the government, of course, will take no responsibility for what has happened. They will blame us with this fictitious black hole. And the leader of the House, and I invite anybody on the opposition side to support her in this assertion, has suggested that this measure was necessary in order to avoid a run on the pound. A run on the pound. It's just as well, Madam Deputy Speaker, they're not in charge of the economy, or we might end up in a real mess. I'll give way to the honourable lady.
Thank you for giving way. Thank you very much for giving way. Does he agree that if a local council had run the finances of the council into the ground the way that his party did to the country, with a £22 billion black hole, that you would have called the commissioners in the morning and you would have instigated swingeing cuts? And could I ask him, given that this is the case, and he now seems to have just decided that his party no longer cares about balancing the books, will he apologise?
Order. Shadow Minister.
Well, I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, that slightly lengthy question might be better addressed by way of a rather lengthy letter to the leaders of Birmingham City Council. And could I say,